Hi there, I'm Nicole Wilbur. I'm a writer and story nerd, and welcome back to my channel. So today I am super excited because this is part 2 of my trying to do the story grid process. So the first one that I just did was the editor's 6 core questions, which was super fun. I will link that above, here, there, and below. And now I'm doing the genre positioning statement. Now, here is a little bit of a disclaimer. There is no blog post that I could find. There is no podcast. There is nothing on how to write a genre positioning statement, but the idea of it was very intriguing to me. So the description they give is this: 300 to 500 words outlining the genre you chose for your book. See part 2 of the story grid, What Good Editors Know, and 3 to 5 masterworks in your genre that inspired your work. And I was like, okay, cool. So part 2 of the story grid, What Good Editors Know, is where they introduce the genre 5-leaf clover. So those 5 leaves are realism. Is it real? Is it fantasy? Is it factualism? Structure is mini plot, arch plot, anti-plot. Time is it long or is it short? Style, is it a drama, a comedy, a play, a musical, a book? And then the content genre is what we usually think of as genre: action, romance, worldview, coming of age, that kind of situation. If you want to hear a little bit about the story that I'm writing, I'm going to put the description of it at the end with a timestamp. So if you want a brief description of the story, go to the end of the video and then come back here. So I was not entirely certain on how to do this. I decided to sort of take it as maybe I can talk about, name the genres of my book and then talk about how it kind of compares and contrasts to those masterworks. I don't know if that's right, but that's what I tried. So it's mini plot, it's realistic, it's long form. The style is classic. The style also might be novella and short, because I'm not entirely sure what style means. I'm not really interpreting it well. And then the global genre is worldview education, and I'll keep a link to worldview education below so you can read more about that. Basically, it's a character who for some reason doesn't see a lot of meaning in the world or in their life, and by the end of the story they have learned to see meaning in things. Basically, the genre is really tied to the theme, right? So my theme is basically we gain meaning when we reach out and accept and the love others despite the risk of getting hurt from it. My genre is worldview education, but I would actually consider it more a subgenre, which I talked about a little bit, that I would call Christmas worldview education, because there are quite a few Christmas classic stories that have this sort of worldview education. The character starts out, they're like, Christmas is terrible. Ew, what is this? What are we doing? I don't want to do this. I don't want to spend time with my family. Ebenezer Scrooge, right? And you're like, ugh, the Grinch. And then by the end of the story, they're like, Christmas, people, family, amazing. So masterworks are pieces that you love, that you think are like the pinnacle of this genre. I went with It's a Wonderful Life, which is a very big worldview education story. And that's based on The Greatest Gift by Philip Dorian Stern. Christmas Bells, which I know is not like a super popular book. It's by Jennifer Schiavarini, and I adore it. It's one of my favorite books ever. It's my favorite Christmas book to read. It's set at present day, and it's set at present day, interweaved with the story of Henry Longfellow, who wrote the story Christmas Bells. And then that is kind of juxtaposed with the story of this choir that rehearses at this church in Boston, and it goes through 8 different point of view characters who are all associated with this choir. So there's the director, there's the piano player, there's the children in the choir. And then my other one was Love Actually. It's not worldview education, but it is Christmas. I'm thinking maybe I should have said like How the Grinch Stole Christmas, or Scrooge or something. Ebenezer Christmas Carol is the actual name of that movie. But I went with Love Actually because it does the same mini plot style that I was using. So we've named the genres, we've named the masterworks, and then how do we connect them? So I wasn't really sure what to say, but I decided to talk about each masterwork specifically, and then to dive into each of the genres of my own mini stories. We have It's a Wonderful Life. And It's a Wonderful Life kind of sets those Christmas classics, right? There's holiday rituals like decorating the tree and caroling. They serve as the setting, they contribute to the conflict, and they amplify the emotion for the reader. So we have one family, and it's one man's life basically leading up to a critical decision on Christmas. It's a Wonderful Life has one of the most amazing catharsis moments at the end when there's decorating the tree and there's the angel and the bell and it's beautiful. And I was like, okay, I would like to emulate something like that. So I was inspired by that catharsis, the joy of worldview education from It's a Wonderful Life. And also I am tracking the story of one family over a long period of time, kind of just like that story tracks, kind of just like It's a Wonderful Life tracks the story of one man over time, all sort of culminating at Christmas time. Then I talked about Christmas Bells because it is the most similar to mine, where it has the 8 point of view characters and it's in mini plot style. They also have a community of interconnected characters, so I have a community of interconnected characters, and I talked about how I was aiming for like a similar style that's lyrical or classical. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to talk about Love Actually is because there was actually a podcast episode on the Editors Roundtable where they analyzed Love Actually and they described it as mini plot, and they literally went through and named the genre of every different subplot in the story. The guy who's in France or Portugal or whatever, and the girl, and they're a romance, obviously. You have kind of a family father bonding story with the guy and the kid. You have sort of a worldview revelation story with what's her name? Emma Thompson and Alan Rickman. I remember none of these characters' names. And it goes on and on and on with the different types of genres. So I learned from that podcast episode that when you have a mini plot story, you can have each mini plot having a different sort of external genre or even internal genre, as long as there's also like an overarching genre for the whole story. So following that style for my story, I then tried to list out all of the overall genres for each of my stories. So for each of my 7 stories, and some of them I knew. Like I knew that Noah's story at the end was pure worldview education, but it took me a while to figure out like what the other genres were. I'm gonna be actually sharing this full story, which is one of the middle ones, in my newsletter to accompany when I try to do the spreadsheet and stuff. It's from the point of view of a character named Bradley. As I said, was a buddy love story because it's really kind of about the friendship between him and Noah, with worldview education finding meaning as the internal genre. So this might be a little bit of a crazy mess, but I will put the genre positioning statement on my website and you can take a look at it. I don't know if this is perfect. I have no idea. This was what I kind of thought made sense. If you read it and you're like, no, this is how you do a genre positioning statement, let me know. But I thought it was, again, a really interesting exercise to sit down and kind of try to compare, like, what is my story compared to these other ones? I know this genre really well. I watch a lot of movies and read a lot of books in Christmas. I have a whole bookshelf about Christmas, and worldview education is a really popular genre in there. And so I felt like I understood the conventions. I knew my favorite stories. And so it was cool to sit down and be like, okay, mine does this, theirs does this inspired me, this is how it breaks down. And it was a cool exercise that I actually think this might have been, this was valuable, I think, and it might have been even more valuable at the very beginning. Before writing a story, this is something that you could do to sit down and say, okay, these are these 3 stories that are super popular. This is how I was inspired by these 3 masterworks. This is how mine differs in XYZ way. And it could really help with some like brainstorming, I think, almost, and figuring out how you can make your story not original, but a little bit distinct, or thinking through what things you could twist for your own story. And it's a really cool exercise, I think, is my conclusion. Although who knows if I did it right or not, but there you go. So if you like this video, do give it a big thumbs up. Make sure you check out the full genre positioning statement below and subscribe to my newsletter. Thank you so much for watching. If you're not subscribed, thinking about doing that, I know I'm asking you to do many, many things. I'm sorry. You don't have to do any of them. It's fine. Do whatever you want. And I will see you next time. So this story, which is currently being called A Christmas Harmony, which I really don't like the title very much. It is about a family. So it starts with Laura and her husband Rob and their two children, Sky and Noah. And Laura, and it's all of the events happen around Christmas. So we start at American Thanksgiving, and then the other stories take place, you know, like mid-December, December 24th, December 23rd, that kind of thing. And so basically the story just follows the characters through their lives from 1985 to 2019. Rob is having difficulties with alcohol. Laura is freaking out about it. The first story is Laura giving birth to Noah. The last story is from Noah's perspective when he and Sky have their own children. So it really is a big span. I'm not going to get too into detail, but that's sort of the basic premise of it. It's this family at Christmas time over this large span of like 30 years. And it does take place in numerous locations over the world. Like a lot of the stories do take place in Kingston, Ontario. There's one in New York, there's one in Berlin, and there's one in England. So, all right, here we go.